Hey class, welcome to lesson number 25. I feel like this is an anniversary of some sort, the 25th lesson. We're talking about Monopoly. We're finishing up Monopoly. We talked about Monopoly in the last one. This is the second half of Monopoly. Just started to talk about it, special characteristics of Monopoly. In fact, that was the homework question. So speaking of the homework question, let's get right into it without wasting time. The 4 characteristics of the Monopoly were asked by me in the last lesson. And basically here are the answers, right? First is a single producer, right? Monopoly is the only producer in the entire market. Second is that there are no closed substitutes, right? There's no other way that the consumer can say, okay, maybe I have choice. Maybe I can go to another person. That's not the case. Because if it's a pure monopoly in our textbook definition, basically says that there are no closed substitutes. You have to go to that particular firm. Third is the fact that barriers to entry are extremely, they're significant. We've talked about this in detail in the last class, saying what kind of barriers to entry are there. Just to, for those of you who just want a quick recap, we talked about legal barriers, like patents and copyrights and trademarks. We also talked about the fact that people have they have the control over resources. Monopolies have control over resources, so other people cannot tap into those resources and then, make it not a monopoly because they won't be a single producer anymore. Other ways we talked about it was the fact that, one other barrier to entry we had was economies of scale. Economies of scale basically says that you have an advantage as you expand. So a bigger company would have a cost advantage over a small company. So, that would give them an advantage in making sure that the smaller company has higher costs, and so they wouldn't be as successful. Therefore, they'd be the only producer. We talked about a natural monopoly, which is an extreme example of economies of scale. A power grid was an example for that, a power company. And lastly, there's a market power, which basically states that you get to dictate pricing, right? And the way we're going to translate this is onto a graph is going to be on this side of the board, and we're going to show you guys how it's normally done. You remember I'm going to first draw you guys a perfect competition. So the first thing I'm going to draw you guys is a perfect competition, okay? So I want you guys to just compare the two, because first let me draw a perfect competition firm, right? So when we were drawing a perfect competition firm, first of all we had 2 different ones, right? We had a market and a firm, right? In a monopoly, we're not going to have that. We're just going to have one. But let me take a perfect competition, right? So this firm exists in perfect competition, right? Remember, the demand was perfectly elastic, right? Kind of looked like this. More importantly, the demand was equivalent to the price, which was equivalent to the marginal revenue, which was equivalent to the average revenue. And then we had a marginal cost curve that kind of looked like that, right? And where MR equals MC, we kind of tag along. That's where our quantity equilibrium was. This is our price equilibrium. These guys in perfect competition are price takers, right? And we had some sort of average cost curve, like an ATC, that came through at the minimum point. And we said, well, they had a profit of this much, right? So that, for you, was a perfect competition. Now let's compare this graph to the new one we're going to have, which is going to be monopoly. Okay, and I'm going to draw that right about here. So let me go ahead and erase this and draw you guys a monopoly so we can kind of see it side by side, how it kind of plays out. How a single producer dictates the market. Because, in a case of a monopoly, we do not have 2 distinct market and firm, right? Because the firm is the market, okay? Because they are the only ones that make this product. There are no other substitute products, right? So monopoly is the firm that is basically the market, right? So typically speaking, you typically have a price and a quantity, same thing, right? P, Q. We're going to have a capital Q here because in a case of a competitive firm, we had a little q, dictating as a firm in the market. This one, both are the same, so we're just going to have a giant, the capitalized Q. And we're going to first draw our demand. Our demand is downward sloping, just like the one in the market for a perfectly competitive firm. The market, right? So kind of downward sloping, kind of like this, right? That's demand. Now, if you guys remember from the last one, in a perfectly competitive market, we said a couple of things. We said the price was equivalent to the marginal revenue, right? In a monopoly, this is not true. Okay? That's not true. In a monopoly, price is greater than marginal revenue. Okay? And for that reason, the ways it's going to look in a monopoly, right? So this is a monopoly. The way it's going to look in a monopoly is that the marginal revenue is going to split it, and it's going to dissect this angle right here. Okay, everyone see that? I first do the demand graph, and I'm dissecting the angle, right? So this is going to be even, right? The way you draw it is going to be even, and this is going to be your marginal revenue, MR. Previously, in a perfectly competitive firm, your MC kind of looked like a check mark, and this one, it's just a straight line. Okay? So your costs just don't come down like they do in the perfectly competitive firm and go up, but they actually just go up, period. So this is going to be your MC. Okay? The one other piece that's missing here is the average total cost that we saw in the last one, right? And it's there in this one too. And it intersects MC exactly at the minimum like it did before. So it kind of looks like this. Right? And this is going to be your ATC. Okay, so we got all this. How do we know where the profit is? How do we know where to produce? I told you guys to remember this rule, right? MR equals MC. MR. Quantity is always produced at where marginal revenue equals marginal cost. So where does it marginal revenue equal marginal cost? Let's look at it. Marginal revenue, that's the line right here. Marginal cost right over there. So this has to be the point. Okay? So you do that. So you just come down here like you did in the last one. And this is going to be your quantity for your monopoly, so QM. Then what you do is you kind of go up, right? So you go back to MR equals MC, and you go up till you hit demand, okay? And this is a demand for the people, okay? Demand for the consumers. And then you're going to go to the left, and that will be your price, okay? So let me write it down in steps, okay? So step one was just find where MR equals MC, right? Find the Q, right? Find Q where MR equals MC, okay? Step two was to find MR equals MC where at, I'll put the at sign, where MR equals MC, right? You go up or down depending on profit or loss. Actually, you just go up because it's always going to be up. You go up, all right? You go up because you guys ever see this? Demand is always going to be on top of marginal revenue. Always, okay? So in a monopoly's case, it's always going to be, when you find MR equals MC, you're always going to go up to hit the demand curve, okay? Go up till you hit demand, okay? And I'm talking about the demand curve, okay? And we just did that, right? I mean, 30 seconds ago, I showed you guys the point. We went up and we hit that point, right? We hit that where we hit the demand graph. We take a left and we hit the price. And that's going to be your price, okay? So find price. Find P, right? So we found P. That's price of, PM stands for price of monopoly. Okay, so we found our QM, we found our price. All right, so now the question is, how do we find our profits? The same way we did last time. Last time what we said was, okay, find the MR equals MC, go down or up depending on profit or loss, right? Same thing here, go down or up till you hit ATC. So MR equals MC right over here, I go down and I hit I hit ATC at this point right here. You guys see this? We're gonna do the same thing as last time. We're gonna go to the left, and that's gonna be your cost, right? That's gonna be at the price at which that was the cost. So this rectangle right here is your profit. Okay? I hope everyone understands this, because the way you do it, I'm going to just recap real quick, is that you find MR equals MC, just like you did in the last one. Okay? You find the quantity, just like you did in the last one, where MR equals MC. Second thing, you find MR equals MC, you go up till you hit demand. Okay? You go up till you hit demand. This is kind of new for the monopoly. Take a left. Okay, I feel like I'm giving you guys directions to go somewhere, but this is exactly what this is. This is kind of like a roadmap for you guys to figure out the profit for monopoly, right? So you go up till you hit your demand. You figure out what price level that's at. The way you do it is go left, you find your PM, your price of monopoly. Go back to the MR equals MC. This is kind of your home base right here, okay? This is your home, right? You come back down, right, till you hit ATC. Or you go up, if it just depends where the ATC is. So try to find ATC from MR equals MC. In this case, it's lower, so it's a profit. If it's higher, it's a loss. Either way, you go down in this case, and you hit left, and that's going to be your cost. And this rectangle right here is going to be your profit. Okay? Now, if your ATC, right, this is your ATC right here, right? If your ATC was up here, right, for some reason, if it kind of intersected like that, if it was higher than your price, you'd make a loss. Okay? And same thing as last time, right? Same thing as last time. If P is greater than ATC, you have a profit, right? You have a profit. If P is less than ATC, you don't have a profit, right? Same exact rule as last time. Different graph. Okay? I hope that's clear. Now what we're going to do in the next one is talk a little bit about efficiency. Okay? So on this side of the board, let me go ahead and start a new title saying efficiency. And don't worry, we're going to link it to a monopoly. It's not like we've just finished monopoly as such. Because efficiency is important in explaining to you guys what is efficient and what's not. Okay? So when it comes to efficiency, okay, we have two things to talk about. When it comes to efficiency, you have two things to talk about. What's the first one? First one's called Allocate of Efficiency, okay? It's called Allocate of Efficiency. It's called Allocate of Efficiency. All right, so what is Allocate of Efficiency? And I can read you guys the definition and explain it to you in a formula. But Allocate of Efficiency is defined as the following, okay? Allocate of Efficiency is achieved when the market produces, MKT stands for market, produces a level of output that where the marginal cost is exactly equal to the marginal benefit of society, where MC, and I'm going to put parentheses society, this is always in society's perspective, right? Where MC of society is equal to the marginal benefit of society. Okay? Marginal benefit of society, think about it. If you're buying something or selling something, the marginal benefit is going to be viewed as price, or P. In other words, if MC equals P, right, which equals MB, okay, then you're allocatively efficient. So the formula is if your MC is equal to P, or if MC equals MB, you're allocatively efficient. That means your society, they're facing a marginal cost that's equivalent to the marginal benefit they're getting. Okay? So they're allocatively efficient. All right, so that's first efficiency. What's the second one? Second one is called productive efficiency, okay? It's called productive efficiency. And we're going to define that as well. So allocative efficiency, guys, we discussed is where marginal cost is equivalent to the marginal benefit, or marginal cost is equivalent to the price, right? The way you look at benefit is the way you measure price, because that's the way producers are selling, consumers are buying, at the P, right? At the level of P. So what's the next one? It's called productive efficiency, and productive efficiency is as follows. Productive efficiency is basically stated as the, productive efficiency basically occurs if the level of output, right? And we normally measure that in quantity, right? So Q, right? The level of output is achieved with the lowest, make sure I get this, yeah, is achieved with the lowest possible cost, okay? Is achieved with the lowest possible cost. Lowest. What does this mean? Okay, lowest possible cost. All All right. So remember how we measure, remember in all these graphs, what's the cost, right? How does it come? It comes in the form of an ATC, right? This parabola that we're talking about, an ATC, right? That's the average total cost. And that's how you view the cost, right? So this basically saying, if you have the lowest possible cost with the level of output you want to have for your society, then you achieve productive efficiency. It's basically saying you're producing something with the cheapest way to do it, right? And that's the way you're productively efficient, okay? And the way you say that in a formula, right, and I sort of hinted this already, is using a minimum ATC. So basically, if price is equivalent to minimum ATC, then you're productively efficient. Okay? You're productively efficient if your price is equal to your minimum ATC. Okay? You're allocatively efficient if your marginal cost equals marginal benefit or your marginal cost equals the price. Okay? So we talked about allocative efficiency, we're talking productive efficiency. What does this have to do with monopoly? Okay. Well, coming back to a monopoly, right? If I go ahead and erase this, I want to draw you guys a graph. Because we're going to talk about a term called deadweight loss. Okay? Deadweight loss. And I'm going to show you guys this graphically because that's the best way of showing this. But deadweight loss basically occurs if society, let me make sure I also have this right. Yeah, so if the total welfare to society is not maximized. And we talked a little bit about this when we talked about consumer surplus and producer surplus, right? So let's look at this monopoly graph that we have, okay? Actually, yeah, so the monopoly graph, we had a price, we had a quantity. The way we drew it was first we had a downward sloping demand, right? And we split the angle, right? We bisected the little angle, right, with this MR graph, right? Right in the middle, so these angles are equal, right? And that's MR, right? We had a straight MC line. This is the way you draw a monopoly, right? Monopoly. Right? This is your MC, okay? And the way you said it was, okay, well, and then the last part was obviously the minimum ATC. So you had a minimum ATC. Obviously, it has to cross at the minimum point for an MC, right? So this is your ATC. The way you find your quantities were MR equals MC, and traditionally, right? I'm sure this is kind of nailed in your head by now. Come down, that's your quantity, right? QE, or rather QM, whatever you want to call it. QM stands for quantity in monopoly, right? You go up where MR equals MC, you hit the demand, take a left, find the price, that's PM, price of monopoly. Go back to MR equals MC. I told you guys it's your home base. You go down in this case till you hit ATC, take a left, right? And that's your cost, and that's your rectangle that's created. Now, that's your quantity of monopoly. Now, what if you were in a competitive market, right? Forget a monopoly, competitive market. Well, in a competitive market, right, you would produce exactly what is demanded. I'm going to say this one more time. You would produce exactly what is demanded. And not just that, you would produce where that your MR is technically equal to your MC. But remember, in a competitive market, your demand is equal to your MR, right? So if your demand is equal to your MC in this graph, you can technically show a competitive market. So okay, where does the demand meet the MC? Right about here. So people are demanding this much amount, not this much, they're demanding this much amount, right? And that's your marginal cost, so that's efficient. So in a competitive market, that would be your QC, right? Your quantity, which is in a competitive market. Okay. Now the difference between the monopoly and the competitive market is your deadweight loss. it's because of the fact that the welfare to society is not maximized. It's talking about those two efficient things, right? We said that if P equals to MC, okay, P equals to MC, right, like it does here, it's allocatively efficient. Allocatively efficient. The second part of productive efficiency was if P is equal to minimum ATC. Not the case in this one, right? Not the case in this one. But we're trying our best to control the costs, right? But this technically is not, this point would not be productively efficient. But in the long run for a competitive firm, it is both productive and allocatively efficient. I'll show you why graphically too. But basically here it says, okay, so P equals MC, okay, cool. This is your competitive market. The difference between these two, right, is your deadweight loss. So this triangle right here, I'm going to make sure it's a little darker so everyone can see. Okay. That right there is your DWL, or dead weight loss. Okay. So this triangle right here is the difference between a competitive market and a monopoly. Okay. And that's your dead weight loss. Right. So dead weight loss occurs when welfare to society is not maximized. Okay. And how we talk about maximization, we talk about allocative efficiency. Right. We say, okay, does P equal MC? Try to find that point where P equals MC, right about there. Right. P equals MC at that point, and then you have it. You have that price level, right? So in a competitive market, price would be right here. It'd be much lower than the monopoly. Makes sense. In a competitive market, prices come down. In a monopoly, prices go up because they have the ability to dictate the prices, right? Okay, so we've gotten this far. Now let's talk about comparing the efficiencies between monopoly versus a perfectly competitive market. Okay, so let's start off with the one we talked about. We talked about allocative efficiency. Okay, so is a perfectly competitive market. Okay, let's talk about allocative efficiency. Allocative efficiency, right? What is allocative efficiency? We said where marginal cost to society equals marginal benefit. The way we view that marginal benefit is all in price. So if P equals MC, we said we're allocatively efficient. In a perfectly competitive firm, let's do short run versus long run. LR stands for long run, SR stands for short run, and this is perfectly competitive, okay? Perfect. Okay, we're talking about perfectly competitive. In the short run, does price equals MC? Let's see. We had a graph here. In the short run, this is your demand, which equals price, which equals marginal revenue. That's your MC. And yeah, it does. P does equal MC. So in the short run, it is allocatively efficient. In the long run, is it allocatively efficient? Yeah, absolutely, because it doesn't change, right? Because the only thing that changes in the long run is your price level, right? But your price level, no matter what it does, it's always going to equal MC, right? So in a perfectly competitive market structure, both in the short run and the long run, you're allocatively efficient. All right, let's talk about allocative efficiency in the short run and long run in a monopoly. Okay, let's see. First of all, before I even start this off, right, and we're talking not about a perfectly competitive firm, we're talking about a monopoly. Monopoly, right? What's the difference in short run and long run, right? We talked about the fact that the reason why long run is different in perfectly competitive markets is the fact of barriers to entry. Barriers to entry, right? In a perfectly competitive market, there are none. In monopoly, they're significant, right? So there is no exit and entry in a monopoly. So the difference in short run and long run really doesn't exist too much in a monopoly, okay? Things don't change too much in a monopoly between a short run and a long run, okay? Because they've already established themselves in that market. Okay? So for a monopoly, let's talk about allocative efficiency in general. Forget long run and short run because they both are pretty similar. So in terms of allocative efficiency, does price equal MC, right? When we drew the graph, right, and we had the demand, we had the marginal revenue, right, D and MR, and then we had MC, right? Here's your MC, right? Marginal price equals marginal revenue, right? And we had your Q here, quantity for monopoly. But the way you talked about price was when you hit the demand line, right? This is your price. So does the price equal MC? It doesn't, right? So in a monopoly, you are not allocatively efficient. Price does not equal marginal cost, okay? I hope everyone understands that. In allocative efficiency, in a perfectly competitive market structure, you are allocative efficient. In a monopoly, you're not, okay? Now let's talk about productive efficiency. All right, so productive efficiency, I'm sure you guys, if you don't remember from last time, we talked about productive efficiency. The difference was between allocative efficiency and productive efficiency was that in productive efficiency, right, talking about productive, in productive efficiency, the question is the price equivalent to the minimum ATC? All right, let's talk about perfectly competitive first, okay? Let's talk about perfectly competitive. Okay, we're talking about perfectly competitive. In a perfectly competitive market, right, you had, let's talk about short run first, right? This is short run, SR, right? Demand equals price equals AR equals MR, right? By now we probably are experts at this. That's MC, right? Make sure I label my axes, otherwise I'll get in trouble, and I don't want you guys to get in trouble in tests, so make sure you label your axes, price and quantity as usual, right? We had a minimum ATC that kind of got through with the minimum point, right? We had an ATC right there. And then we had a profit, right? We had a profit. Okay? Okay, I'm sorry. Here, there we go. So this is a profit rectangle right here. MR equals MC. So in the short run, the question was, does P equal minimum ATC? It doesn't, right? Look at this. Price is over here, right? This is my price for a perfectly competitive. This is short run, by the way, in a perfectly competitive market. Price is over here. Minimum ATC is right about here. So in the short run, in a perfectly competitive market, it doesn't. But do you guys remember what long run states? In long run, right? In a long run, perfectly competitive market, we said that there are no profits or losses. So what does that mean? It means that in the long run, when you have your price equilibrium, right? And again, this equals AR equals MR, right? Equals little d. In the long run, when you have your marginal cost, your ATC is actually going to intersect the price at the minimum point. Why? Because by definition, in the long run, in the perfectly competitive market, right, there are no profits. There are no profits. It's a normal profit, right? Zero profit is normal profit, right? So price is equal to minimum ATC. So in a long run, perfectly competitive markets are productively efficient, okay? They are productively efficient in the long run, okay? And only in a perfectly competitive market. Now let's talk about monopolies for productive efficiency, okay? So we had a monopoly, right? Let's use this graph to my left over here. You know, I kind of changed things to give you guys different examples, so it kind of looks not so clear right now. But the point was, does price equal minimum ATC? So here's your minimum ATC, right? Does your price equal minimum ATC? In a monopoly, it could, but it doesn't, okay? So a monopoly is neither productively efficient or allocatively efficient. I'm going to say that one more time. A monopoly is neither productively efficient or allocatively efficient. Because if they are, then they're going to lose out money, okay? They're going to lose out money and revenue. And they're not going to do that because they're a monopoly. They have that market power. Remember, they have that market control. So they're going to use that control, dictate the price at a higher level than what it should be, right? And create that, you know, loss in the deadweight loss, right? So if deadweight loss occurs, I'm just going to recap real quick. When does deadweight loss occur? It occurs when total welfare of the society is not maximized, right? So in a monopoly, it's not going to be maximized because they're not going to be productively or allocatively efficient. Because being productively efficient means that they have to charge how much money they make and exactly how much they cost. They're not going to do that. They're a monopoly. They have the control in the market, right? De Beers family is not going to say all of a sudden the diamonds are going to be $5 a piece, right? That'd be cool, but they're not going to do that, right? They want to make money, right? Because they have control. They're a monopoly, right? So De Beers is not productively efficient or allocatively efficient because it's against the profitability goal, okay? So that's, I think, with that, I think I can finish monopolies there because, you know, we've hit the major points. Understand that there's no big difference in short and long run. We've kind of drawn the demand and the marginal revenue as two different lines in a monopoly. Marginal cost is not a check. It doesn't lower first and go up again. And marginal cost in a monopoly is just a straight line going upward, right? Minimum ATC kind of looks the same. It kind of intersects the MC point, right, at its minimum, right? So ATC looks the same. Price is dictated by the demand, right? So you hit the MR equals MC. Always remember MR equals MC. That's the most important point. You go up, and that's you hit the demand line, and that was your price for a monopoly. Quantity is dictated by MR equals MC. You go up to MR equals MC, you hit the ATC, and that's your cost. And then you create your own profit rectangle. The way you dictate deadweight loss is you see what's competitive, where P equals MC, right? That's where a competitive market would be, where P equals MC at this point, right? So the difference between the competitive market and the monopoly, this triangle right here, is the deadweight loss, right? And then we talked about two things, allocative efficiency and productive efficiency. We said a monopoly is neither. Monopoly is not neither productively efficient, nor is it allocatively efficient. What does allocative efficiency mean? It means that your marginal benefit is equal to marginal cost, also dictated by price. So marginal cost equal to price, right? Perfectly competitive markets are allocatively efficient. What's productive efficiency? Productive efficiency is if marginal benefit equals marginal cost, right? Productive efficiency, I'm going to correct myself. Productive efficiency means that, I probably have it right here, I was lying to you guys right when I had the answer right behind me, is when price is equal to your minimum ATC. Only in the long run is perfectly competitive markets productively efficient, okay? So perfectly competitive markets can be productively efficient and are always allocatively efficient. Monopolies are never productively efficient or allocatively efficient, okay? So understand that. Those are your big takeaways. With that, here is your homework question. I think efficiency is really important to talk about. So tell me the definitions for productive and allocative efficiencies. If you don't want to explain the definition, just give me the formula. I think that's the more important one. So give me the formulas for both productive and allocative efficiency, but understand more importantly, intuitively what that means to you. Okay? With that being said, I'll come back with the next lesson. We're going to cover more oligopoly and more different market structures. So thank you so much for joining me, and I hope to see you guys in the next one. Thank you.